Hello everyone, welcome to Drishti IAS. Today I'm here with you with another video on government schemes that are very crucial from your UPSC preliminary point of view. And today we are going to be discussing schemes from the Environment Ministry or the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So without further ado, let's take a look at what is in store for us. Let's begin with the very first scheme, which is the National CAMPA or the National Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority. Now, what exactly is this, students? It is basically a statutory body or an authority that was established under the Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act of 2016. Now, what does this authority do? It manages and utilizes those funds that are deposited with it by a user agency when it diverts forest land for non-forest uses. So if there is a user agency and it diverts forest land for the purposes of non-forest uses, for example, what are non-forest uses? For example, let's say construction of roads or dams or mining. So if these activities are undertaken, then the user agency has to pay a certain amount, and that amount is deposited with the fund, and this authority utilizes and manages that amount. Now, this fund is basically non-lapsable as well as interest bearing, meaning non-lapsable means that the fund does not lapse at the end of the year. So if we have 100 crores in the fund and only 30 crores were able to be utilized in this year, the remaining 70% are going to, or 70 crores are going to carry forward to the next year. They will not lapse. And interest bearing meaning they will accrue interest over the period of time. They will have certain interest. So let's say if 100 crores remain there for some time, for let's say for 1 year, then you will end up with 105 crores if 5% is the rate of interest. All right. So this is just an example. Now, there are two kinds of funds, one at the national level and the other one at the state level. The national level fund is managed by the central government. The state level funds are managed by the respective state governments or the administrations of the union territory. Now, what are these funds used for? They are utilized for naturally compensatory afforestation, restoration of degraded forests, wildlife habitat improvement, as well as biodiversity enrichment. So we've already read that the national fund is controlled by the central government, while the state fund is managed by their respective state governments and UT administrations. Now, National CAMPA Authority has actually transformed compensatory afforestation by introducing certain financial mechanisms as well as by introducing innovative digital reforms. What are those reforms? These include the rollout of Pan-India Digital APO portal. What does APO mean? It means Annual Plan of Operations. So what do the states are required to do? What are the states required to do? They are basically to submit their annual plan of operations, meaning whatever the land is going to be under afforestation, how much percentage of it is going to be under compensatory afforestation, and so on. Then again, there is also a development of monitoring and evaluation tool by BISAG-N, which is a technical and scientific agency. Then there is also the development of a national CAMPA dashboard, and all of this, what it does is that it enhances transparency as well as accountability, because there is going to be stricter monitoring. There is going to be a stricter verification to make sure that compensatory afforestation actually takes place. So, a scientific oversight is also maintained. Now, based on this, a UPSC PYQ was also asked in 2019. Let's take a look at it. Consider the following statements. 1. as per law, the Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority exists at both national and state levels. We just read about it. This statement is accurate. Second, people's participation is mandatory in the compensatory afforestation programs carried out under the Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act of 2016. Now, please notice the word mandatory. Whenever you see absolute terms, overwhelming terms like mandatory, bound, compulsory, all, none, what do? You take a pause and you rethink the statement. You take a look at it again. So here, nowhere have we read that the law mandates people's participation. However, such laws usually do encourage people's participation, but nowhere did we read that the law has made this or the authority has made people's participation compulsory or mandatory. So we can rule this out. And with this, we can arrive at the correct answer, which is option A, one only. The next scheme that we are going to discuss is the Aravalli Landscape Restoration or the Green Wall Initiative. Now, as the name suggests, this is what exactly? This is a landscape restoration project. And again, as its alternative name suggests, it is inspired by or it has been modeled along the lines of the Great Green Wall Project of Africa, which extends from Senegal in the west to Djibouti in the east. Now, what exactly does this initiative aim to do? Naturally, it aims to restore 6.31 million hectares of land across which places? Across the places that has Aravalli, meaning across Rajasthan, Haryana, Gujarat and Delhi. And it plans to do so through a phase-wise program starting from 2025 up till 2034. What does the restoration focus on? It focuses on forest rejuvenation, grassland restoration as well as mine reclamation, and it also takes help from programs like CAMPA, Manrega and the Green India Mission. Now, why is this important? It is important to know that we need this because this green wall is going to act as a barrier and prevent the eastward march of Thar Desert. So basically, it's going to prevent further desertification. Hence, it is significant to us. So here we have restored around 36,000 hectares of land. Now, it is also important to know about the Aravallis. The Aravallis are the oldest fold mountains in the world and they span over 800 kilometers, and we've already covered the states Rajasthan, Gujarat, Haryana and Delhi. And the highest peak of Aravallis is the Guru Peak in Mount Abu. Next initiative that we are going to study about is the International Big Cat Alliance. Now, what is this, students? It is a global initiative by India. So, first of all, since it is India's initiative in particular, so it makes it extremely important. And as the name suggests, if it is a big cat alliance, it naturally aims at conservation of certain big cat species. How many big cat species? 7 big cat species. Now, what are those big cats? They are tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, jaguar, cheetah and puma. Now, when was this initiative launched? It was launched in 2023 to mark the 50th anniversary of Project Tiger. And tiger also happens to be among the big cat species that ought to be conserved under this program, this initiative. The membership has been expanded to 18 countries. And who all are invited to be members of this alliance? range countries, non-range countries, as well as international organizations. Range countries are those countries where all these big cat species are found. Now, the important thing about this, or the important thing to remember over here, is that it is not conserving these big cat species in silos or in compartments. It is rather focusing on a very holistic approach. How? By linking biodiversity conservation with climate adaptation, with ecosystem services, with water securities, as well as community livelihoods. And another important thing to remember from the prelims point of view particularly is that India is set to host the first ever global Big Cat Summit in 2026, where ministers from 95 range countries will deliberate on collective strategies for conservation. So this point is also important from your prelims point of view. Now, this IBCA launched by Honorable Prime Minister, marking the 50th anniversary of our Project Tiger, and it was established through the National Tiger Conservation Authority under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The next initiative that we are going to talk about is the National Clean Air Program. Now, as again the name suggests, it is focused on improving ambient air quality. Improving ambient air quality. How will it do so? Naturally, by reducing pollution, and its particular focus is on PM 2.5 and PM 10 particles. So it aims to improve ambient air quality by making a significant reduction of 20% in the PM 10 and 2.5 particles, taking 2017 as the baseline, and they aim to achieve this target by 2024-2025. When was the scheme launched, or this initiative launched? It was launched in 2019. Now, let's first understand what are PM 2.5 and PM 10. PM stands for particulate matter. So basically, they are very small inhalable dust particles. PM 2.5 have a diameter of around 2.5 micrometers, and similarly PM 10 have a diameter of around 10 micrometers. Where are they found, or what is their source? So construction, unpaid payments, fields, fires, all right? Now this target has also been revised. So according to the latest targets, which have to be achieved by 2025-26, this PM 10 has to be reduced by 40%, or they have to be meeting the acceptable standard by the NAAQS, or the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. And the permissible level of PM 10 in our air is 60 micrograms per cubic meter. This target has to be achieved by 2025-26. Now here, under this program, first of all, we need to understand this is not so much of a law as much as it is a mission framework. And the aim is not simply to reduce pollution, but also to improve air quality. So under this, approximately 130 cities have been covered, and there's also performance linked incentives. Now, 22 cities out of these 130 cities were able to meet the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for PM 10 levels. What is the acceptable standard? It is 60 micrograms per cubic meter. Now, this means that there is some improvement, but our aim is to improve the air quality and not simply have a reduction in PM 10 levels. So for this, guidelines were issued for conducting ward level Swachh Vayu Sarvekshan in 130 cities. When we are talking about ward level Swachh Vayu Sarvekshan, it is basically a survey of air quality, or basically a ranking exercise based on parameters like mechanisms or measures to check pollution and measures to improve air quality. And this exercise was conducted at the ward level. Mind you, cities are divided into different wards, and to make it more local and to conduct this exercise at the micro level, it was conducted at a ward level in around 130 cities, so that the government has shown seriousness about this project. So here certain air pollutants have been mentioned, like sulfur dioxide, which comes from the consumption of fossil fuels like oil, coal and natural gas, and they have various impacts, mainly respiratory in nature, and they also mix with water to cause acid rain. Then we have ozone, which is a secondary pollutant, meaning they are formed from volatile organic compounds as well as nitrogen oxides. Students, what are volatile organic compounds? See, volatile means any compound that evaporates quickly, and organic compounds are those that contain carbon. So hence, this is a secondary pollutant. Again, it also causes various problems like irritation of the eye and other respiratory mucous membrane irritations and asthma attacks. Then we have nitrogen dioxide. It emits from road transport, industry as well as energy sectors, and here, as always, it also causes chronic lung disease. Notice how all of these pollutants are causing pulmonary respiratory problems. Then we have which emits from the incomplete combustion of fossil fuels, and here they cause fatigue, confusion, dizziness due to inadequate oxygen delivery to our brain. Then we have ammonia, which is caused by the metabolism of amino acids, and then they also cause immediate burning in the eyes, throat and respiratory tract. And then in long term, they can result in blindness as well as lung damage. So here again, we can see some lung related or respiratory issue. And here we have lead, which is given out, or the residual product of the extraction of various metals like silver, platinum and iron from their ores respectively. It causes anemia, weakness and kidney and brain damage. So as you can see, among all these pollutants, lung damage is a constant, along with kidney damage and brain damage as well. Here we have also talked about PM 2.5 and PM 10. You may remember the impact, which is also similar, that is irregular heartbeat, aggravated asthma and decreased lung function. Next, we have the Green Credit Program, which is the revised framework. So what exactly is the Green Credit Program, students? It is a market-based voluntary framework wherein a user agency is given or rewarded with green credits for doing environmentally sustainable or environmentally friendly actions. So the more trees you plant, and if you meet certain conditions, you are going to be rewarded with certain green credits that you can use in your CSR obligations and so on and so forth. Now the thing over here is, it is a revised framework. So it was basically launched under the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Why is it the revised framework and how is it different from the original program that was launched? So basically earlier the focus was more on the quantity. How many trees were planted, and as soon as you planted those trees and you showed it to the authorities, you were given certain credits, irrespective of whether those trees could survive or not. So earlier, in the earlier framework or the original framework, what happened was that the focus was on quantity, which usually led to token plantation. That look, we've done our job, we've planted trees, irrespective of the ecological quality of those trees planted, and not focusing on the survivability of those trees. Whereas now the focus is more on quality. So you have to ensure 40% canopy, greater than 40% canopy cover, and then only will you be issued green credits. Now earlier you were issued those credits immediately, but in the revised framework, a credit is issued after 5 years, and one credit is issued for one tree that is older than 5 years. So this ensures that you've actually performed your exercise diligently and not just done something as a way of tokenism. So here you can read about this. Now these credits may be used for your compensatory, afforestation, or your statutory plantation requirements, or to fulfill your CSR obligations, but they may be used only once and they cannot be reused. So as I told you, this program was launched under the Environment Protection Act of 1986, and this was launched in 2023, and it encourages participation from government institutions, private organizations, NGOs, as well as individuals. The next scheme that we are going to discuss is the Parivesh 2.0. Now, whenever we see 2.0, we must understand that this is an upgraded version of an earlier scheme, or any software or anything that existed earlier. 2.0 is usually referring to the upgraded version. So here we are talking about Parivesh. What is Parivesh? Parivesh is a portal, a single window hub. So let's look at what Parivesh exactly is. Parivesh means proactive and responsive facilitation. Proactive and responsive facilitation for interactive, virtuous, and environmental, interactive, virtuous, and environmental single window hub. Single window hub. So this is a single window hub. What is it used for? It is used for this online submission, monitoring, as well as processing of environmental clearances. What are those environmental clearances? Any clearances that have to deal with, let's say, of course, the environment is there, wildlife, right? Then you have your coastal regulation zones, forests. So all these clearances are submitted, processed, and monitored over here. Now what happens? Because of this single window hub, it increases accountability, it increases transparency, it increases or improves real-time tracking, and which leads to the facilitation of ease of doing business. So all these are the benefits. And how? By integrating GIS, or Geographic Information System. What is GIS? Students, it is a computer system which basically stores data, analyzes it, and again processes it, displays information based on a map or a location. All right. So this is what your GIS is. So because it is offering a single window interface, what it leads to? It leads to citizen-centric governance, meaning minimum government, maximum governance. Again, this Parivesh 2.0 has been integrated with PM Gati Shakti, with NSWS, with CAMPA's Digital Payment Gateway, and QCI NABED's accreditation portal. Hence, it embodies a whole of government approach because there is integration of all these related programs. Next, we have the Mishti program. So what is the full form of Mishti? It is the Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes. And as the name suggests, when we talk about Mangrove Initiative, it is understood that this scheme aims at restoring and expanding mangroves. And of course, also focuses on opportunities for local livelihoods. When was this scheme launched? It was launched, or it was announced in Union Budget 2023-24 and then launched on the World Environment Day, that is 5th June 2023. Now, why is there so much of focus on restoration of mangroves? Before that, let's first understand what exactly mangroves are. So mangroves are basically forests that consist of salt-tolerant trees and shrubs, meaning they can survive in hostile environments with high salinity waters. All right. So these are mangroves. And where are they found? They are found in intertidal regions like deltas and estuaries. Why the focus on their restoration and expansion? Because, first of all, they create a natural barrier. They are the first line of defense, the natural bioshields to disasters like cyclones and storms. Then, another important thing is that they also prevent coastal erosion. What else? They also are important grounds of biological productivity. And finally, they are a great potential carbon sink. So, they can be utilized for sequestration of carbon. So far, an area of 22,560 hectares has been taken up through convergence across 13 states and union territories. So this is what about mangroves has been given over here. Coastal ecosystems, and they thrive in intertidal zones of tropical and subtropical regions. They can survive in saline, low oxygen environments. And important mangrove trees include red mangrove, grey mangrove, as well as rhizophora. Now here, significance of mangroves is given. Characteristics of mangroves is given. Let's take a look at the various threats to mangroves. So one is commercialization of coastal areas, then there is an increase in shrimp farms, and then there is temperature fluctuations, and mangroves do not tend to survive in freezing temperatures. So these are the potential and actual threats. Now let's also take a look at the mangrove cover in the world as well as in India. So globally, mangroves are found in Asia, followed by Africa, followed by North and Central America, followed by South America, whereas in India, West Bengal has the largest mangrove cover, and Sundarbans are the world's largest single patch of mangrove forests. After West Bengal, Gujarat tends to have the maximum area under mangroves, followed by Andaman and Nicobar Islands, followed by Andhra Pradesh, and then Maharashtra. The next scheme that we have to cover is the Nagar Van Yojana. What do you understand by Nagar Van? Whenever we think of Nagar Van, what comes to mind? Nagar Van actually reminds us of urban forest. So this must be an urban forestry scheme, isn't it? What is the whole idea of this? This scheme was launched in 2020 to create urban forests in, or to create forest lands in, forest patches in urban, semi-urban and peri-urban areas. What must be the objective of this scheme? Let's think about it logically and we'll infer it one by one. We'll deduce the objectives one by one. So naturally, when we are talking about increasing the forest cover, so the first objective is to increase forest cover. What happens if the forest cover is increased? Naturally, there will be an improvement in air quality. So there will be an improvement in air quality. Air quality improves. What will go down? Pollution is going to reduce. So there will be a reduction in pollution. What else? You know how urban heat islands are formed? So naturally, heat and temperature is also going to go down. So let's say urban heat islands, this phenomenon is going to reduce. What else? This will lead to an improvement in the overall health, also in recreation. So recreation will go up, right? So these are 5 or 6 objectives that have been done here. Now, so far, a total of 620 Nagar Van projects have been sanctioned and 75 projects were sanctioned in 2025 alone. Now here, who all are involved in creating these Nagar Vans? So your local communities, NGOs, educational institutions like schools as well as local bodies are involved. So in a way, it focuses on community participation or Jan Bhagidari. So the concept of Jan Bhagidari is really important to this urban forestry program. Here, of course, we have the various salient features, which is something that we discussed at the very beginning of this scheme. Then we have the last scheme that we have to discuss today, which is Mission Life. Now, what is Mission Life? It is lifestyle for environment. When the name is lifestyle for environment, it means that it is focusing on sustainable lifestyle for a sustainable development and a sustainable environment. How can we ensure that the lifestyle is sustainable? By making sure that our consumption is responsible. So this lifestyle, sustainable lifestyle, or sustainable lifestyle basically is ensured through responsible consumption at different levels. So for example, at home, we can save energy, we can use electricity very judiciously, we can use water very judiciously. Then of course, at the level of transport, we can carpool or we could use public transport instead of taking individual vehicles. And again, at the level of consumption, we can switch to recycle and reuse instead of going for more unsustainable options. So that way, we do meet the requirements of sustainable development, but at both individual as well as community levels. So here again, it is a nudge, not only to the community, but also to every individual to adopt a more responsible consumption behavior. All right. And this is the concept of P3, which is pro-planet people. Pro-planet people. So here, people are expected to be living or adopting a lifestyle that is pro-planet. Now, when was this announced? It was announced at the time of COP26 in the year 2022, and it was announced by our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. So, the important point here that you may also want to note is that India is the only country to include life in its nationally determined contributions or NDCs under the Paris Agreement. So, this could be very important from a UPSC Prelims point of view. So, here our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, officially launched the mission in 2022 at the Gujarat during a meeting with the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres. So with this, we've come to the end of this lecture. I have brought to you a practice question. Please take a moment, read the question carefully, and do send me your answers in the comment section. If you found today's video useful and fruitful, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And thanks for watching.
For more informative content, like, share, and subscribe. And do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.